Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm Sessions podcast. It is an absolute stunning day here in Bellingham on this lovely Thursday afternoon.
Still a piping 62 degrees.
I know. It's great.
Yeah.
It's not going to last very long. It's about to get real cloudy and gloomy here soon.
Yeah.
But, you know, take what you can. Enjoy the beautiful days. Outside while they're here.
Do you know, this may not make any sense to anyone that doesn't live in Bellingham, but do you know when Colshan Trackside opens?
No. They're supposed, I thought they weren't open
Didn't
already?
they have an industry night? I thought you would be there, you know.
No. I thought they were going to open. I saw something on Instagram.
Yeah.
Like a post they were going to announce that it was going to be open. Yeah.
I like that spot.
Yeah, it's good. Actually, a small little cafe in there, I think would be dope. Like a container cafe. There is
one.
There's something.
There's a cafe in there, yeah.
And I'm bummed.
I forgot who it is, but I'm pretty sure it's not Dane Good Coffee.
Nice.
That's a
Freaking
deep cut.
good old Dane. Good old Dane.
Dang Good Coffee.
Dane.
Great Dane. Yeah.
Okay.
It's solid coffee. It does not. There's this aftertaste on it again. Like it kind of reminds me of it's like buttery. That's the word I'm using.
Buttery.
Buttery.
What?
Yeah. It's like buttery.
Man, I can see where you're getting that.
I guess. I mean, maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm conflating that with juicy. It's just not juicy because to me, it doesn't have a big punchy acidity. Maybe I'm wrong.
As it cools, it's a little. It seems like it's just opening up a little bit as it just cools, even here in my mug. This is just like a small little short little tangent. You can. There's usually like when you have like air roasters,
Like a popcorn roaster. No.
yeah.
No.
When you have like
Gotcha.
Ikawas, but then also like Lorings,
Oh, those guys.
IMFs.
Those guys. Yeah.
I don't know. There's like this flavor, especially when roasters will go pretty light, that sits on these coffees. That is like this very noticeable flavor that I pick up. Like even here, I've picked it up multiple times and just around like trying different, roasters. It's not a bad one, honestly.
Yeah.
I think a very light roast from an air roaster, I think has that flavor, and it tastes better. I think it's less intrusive than say like a drum roaster. Drum roasters are a little less. Yeah, they're a little more harsh and a little less. They're a little more forgiving in the flavor, which I'm picking up a little bit here. But it's really, I don't know. That was just what came to mind. I don't know why that tangent was necessary.
No. I think, you're getting into some hot water because you're talking about different roasters yield different flavor profiles in a similar way that different burrs yield different sweetness and different clarity.
Maybe. I definitely think like this, the podcast episode for another day, but I definitely do think that there is a difference between, a drum roaster and an air roaster. Not that you can't, again, this is not that you can't get a good coffee out of either of them. Same with burrs.
Yeah.
I think, like, for example, the Comandante is a conical burr. I use it almost on a daily basis, right next to the EK. That's a flat burr. And I can get, like, really exceptional coffees, brews from both of them.
Right.
So, again, this isn't necessarily that drum roasters or air roasters are better than the other. It's just
an observation.
Choose your character. And like like you're playing like Call of Duty or something, or
Need for Speed.
You just have like high acceleration but low speed, and another one has like
I totally. Yeah, I'm curious because I'm trying to think. Apart from, I never fully got to roast on a stronghold, but ish.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from that, I think every roaster I've roasted on was a drum roaster. Yeah. I believe so. A little roasted on the Arc, roasted on the, what's the other, Ambex.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day. Yeah.
Wow.
Obviously Diedrich, multiple Diedrichs, considering the primer one.
Of course.
A side note, this might not be a good thing for the pod. Again, it's almost like, folks, some of these episodes, we'll be honest, is just Mark and I chatting and things come to our mind, like right now.
Mm-hmm.
But our, homie Jason is roasting coffee.
Stevenson? Whoa, where?
Where is he roasting? I'm not sure. But where is he serving coffee at his home church?
Where?
My church.
Is he here?
Yeah, Jason lives here. Yeah,
and
yeah.
He roast coffee?
Someone told me in the cafe, came in and said, "Hey, did you know that?" Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, "Oh, sick." I'm glad that dude's in coffee. He's a Q grader.
He should be.
He's been in coffee for a long time. He should be doing some kind of coffee stuff. He's good at it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I was like, whoa, I had no idea. It was fun.
It's stellar.
Yeah.
But what we have on the docket for today is I don't know, what do you call them? Specialty drinks?
No, not necessarily.
I don't know.
That's not what I was thinking.
You tell me, because you're like, we should talk about this.
We should talk about this because I was talking to another homie of ours, no names mentioned. He is a listener, and he will be listening to this pod.
Come on.
But he was basically saying opinions on like Americanos.
Hold on, before we go there, I'm just gonna say, as this coffee cools, it's actually opening up nicely. You're getting a little bit of fruit, a little bit of just like it's
in the aftertaste.
It's in the aftertaste, 100%, and it's very nice.
Yeah.
For those of you who I know, this podcast is all over the place today. I don't know what's going on. This is a coffee from September Coffee. It is his Kyle's Jorge Rojas, which if you were around like a year ago, we also had a Jorge Rojas, and it was probably one of the best coffees that we had last year. It's a bourbon honey. It's a ripper.
Yeah.
And definitely has fruit forward characteristics. I mean, it's jammy. It's punchy. So yeah, I missed that coffee on our menu.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can get it back sometime.
For sure.
But anyways, we're talking to this homie.
Yeah. And basically discussing like what we think about Americanos. And here's the thing, to draw a little perspective and context. I predominantly in the cafe started with drinking batch brew. Then I merged to Americanos. And then I went straight to espresso.
This was a while ago, I'm assuming.
I'm talking about like Starbucks days.
Okay.
Like I was that intense, dude.
10 years ago? 12?
I mean, more. I mean, that was probably 20 years ago.
Okay. Wow.
So I was more or less drinking some, Pike's Place or
20 years ago, Serge was 12 ordering batchy at Starbucks.
12, dude. I was
Who can top that?
Ordering batchy, dude. Give me with a frappuccino on the side.
Go on.
But that's the other thing. It's like, there's like frappuccinos and all that. I had someone come into the cafe and order a frappuccino, and you have to have that conversation like, yo, we don't carry blenders, this and this and that, but this is what we have to offer, blah, blah, blah. But my thought, like after talking to my homie and after like you and I have talked about this a lot, like, do you ever feel like when you go into a cafe, like, is there a go-to drink that you would order? Like if no one knew who you were, like, and it's like a taboo drink, like an Americano.
Fair.
That's fair. That's my more or less my thought, like behind this context. And also like, are there drinks that are like completely taboo? Like when someone orders and you're working behind the bar and you're like, oh, slight judgment creeps in. It's like, dude, why are you getting an Americano? Just grab a batch or, grab a filter. Like those are better alternatives. So that's initially what I was thinking. I'm like, man, what are those drinks? And of course, listeners probably know that episode about dang good coffee. I will sneak in a mocha here and there when no one's looking. Like, that's fine. Like, give me a few pumps of simple too.
And I think there's a couple of things here. I think which we've covered already, slightly, is coffee culture in the United States.
Yeah.
That has a really big deal here. And B, I think, to be honest, I don't know. It just flew out of my head. But I think also kind of depends on where I'm at. Like, if you're at the airport, again, if you're at the airport and Starbucks is the only thing, of course, like, I'm not going to go in for a batchy. Like, I'm sorry. I'm probably going to sneak in, you know, an iced latte, small iced latte, blonde or espresso. Right. Or, totally. You know, like, get a little small half pump of vanilla. Honey. Or, you know what I've been really jiving with lately? It's probably not good for me because I'm trying to cut out sugar out of my life. It's been a good journey. But they have this like vanilla cream cold brew that they have, which is like, it's predominantly like a giant cold brew. Yeah. But they have this foam that somehow I guess has like flavor injected into it. I don't even know how these things work. And then it just like sits at the top. So when you're sipping it, the cold brew kind of goes through the foam and it tastes a little. Yeah. And honestly, you guys, it's a ripper. Yeah. And you still get a lot of that coffee flavor because it's cold brew. Yeah. It's like a big thing of cold brew. Yeah. So I mean that's what I've been driving. So I don't know if I'm about to get called out by a bunch of coffee folks, but this is the episode where we can just say,
I mean, the other question is
what you'd order when nobody's watching.
Yeah.
So.
Well, is it taboo to get cold brew over iced coffee? Or why is it? The question is like, why are some cafes like really leaning into cold brew versus leaning into iced coffee? Like, to a degree, you have so much more flexibility in making iced coffee.
What's a nice coffee?
Like batch brew concentrate over ice. So you brew it over ice.
Batch brew concentrate.
Yeah. So you just brew a batch brew, just a very tighter strong ratio.
And then you just pour it over ice.
No, like, for example, at Narrative, we brew a tighter ratio of batch brew. And obviously, it has its own grind size. It has its own dial. Right. But we have I think a 1 gallon pitcher, 3/4 filled with ice. And we brew it over that. Yeah. Okay. So it's like I dialed it in when we were like opening up the Bellingham cafe. And it tastes great. Like, people love it. But there's this idea of like, cafes that do have iced coffee are those cafes, and then cafes that have cold brew, those cafes. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's like a kind of a taboo thing going around, at least that I've noticed, that if you have cold brew in your cafe, you're not, I guess, with the cool kids kind of thing. Does that make sense?
If you don't have cold brew?
No, if you do have cold brew. Yeah.
You're not with the cool kids.
Yeah. Sometimes. Like,
why?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Is it taboo to order a cold brew?
I think again, like, this does come down to a little bit of culture, and not just culture, but I think not just like coffee culture in general, which is a part of it. The like American coffee culture, right? Is kind of colliding with, I think, specialty coffee culture, or snobby third wave, whatever you want to call it, which I think we're more slightly leaning towards and are a part of. But I think it's the mashup of like, hey, we want to stick to some standards. Right. We want to stick to a level of quality, and we want to be very, coffee focused. But then at the same time, I think business comes into here also, because it's like, well, what if 50, 60, 70% of your customers that come in are wanting that kind of a beverage? Right. When do you cave in and say, hey, we can offer both, like a really high-end specialty experience, but then also fun drinks for, the general consumer? Because if you only serve those exceptional high-end coffees, and I've been part of cafes that really were very strict on it, it's also not sustainable. So it's like you're kind of wrestling with like, man, how do you keep a high standard while also being flexible enough to actually give people what they want? Like, like at some point I was working at a cafe that was like, hey, we're not gonna, we're not, like, there are certain things we won't mix, but we'll give you the deconstructed parts and you mix it
Use
yourself.
it yourself. Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, like
Yeah,
I
like,
get it,
why?
but
yeah. And that's exactly what I was thinking about. It's like, how do you work within the framework of someone else's preferences, provide great hospitality, but also stick within the preferences of what you believe is quality, or basically how you define quality in a sense, and then and then execute with a lot of grace and do it really, really well. It would be in the same way, like, hey, would you roast a geisha for dark roast?
right. Oh yeah, that's fair.
Like, would you? Or like if someone said like, hey, I would, like I want, or if we had a wholesale partner that said, hey, I want this coffee, and it's like an expensive green coffee. Yeah. And they're like, I just want it to be dark, but I'm willing to pay whatever, $60 a pound wholesale.
Right.
Let's say,
Right.
something wild. Right.
Right.
But I just want it dark. Like, to how far can we take those preferences in consideration without, not even sacrificing values, but also like, holding values in tension and being like, this kind of doesn't align, but if our primary value is hospitality, like, should we still do it? Like, all of that kind of stuff. It's super challenging.
It's also like in the same kind of concept of like when you go to like a really nice restaurant, chances are they probably won't give you ketchup. Like fair. They probably also won't, depends, but they probably won't have like a salt shaker and
depends. But for sure. Black pepper.
Because it's supposed to come out the way it's supposed to taste, and they're very, but then it's like, man, if I don't think this is salty enough,
what do you do?
You know what I mean. Let me ask you, from your years of like working at a cafe, what do you think are specialty drinks, fun drinks, necessary in a cafe? What do you think about them? Do you like them? Do you think there's a way to do it bad and do it right, or really exceptionally, or is there a way to merge those two worlds in a way that still encourages craftsmanship and excellence?
Make syrups that you firmly believe in the flavor and make them original. Like, actually make syrups from scratch. That's as simple as that. Again, there's a lot of people in our industry who are probably listening to our podcast who work for syrup companies that are big major sponsors of all of the events we go to. Those I think syrups have their place too. Like, I'm not canceling one or the other, but if you wanted to, like, let's say you're serving like higher end coffee and you wanted to complement like a signature beverage, make a custom syrup for that signature beverage, right? I think that's an easy way. Like, for a while, I was super anti syrups, but that's because I was serving just kind of classic stuff that you could pick up at a restaurant supply store, and those syrups weren't really fun for me. They were kind of very heavy on the sugar, artificial, this and this and that. When I started getting into syrups that were more or less made in-house, like crafted, like my recipes were dialed, like I was dialing all of that in, then a different level of intrigue came in, because I'm like, hey, especially in like competition, like when you're doing a signature beverage for like barista, you're looking for a transformative experience within the coffee. So coffee should be the predominant element of the beverage, and you're using different ingredients to make that coffee shine or transform.
Okay, I'm glad you went into the barista competition signature beverage, because that is actually a mixed beverage that might have some syrup, some additions to it outside of coffee. And it's a part of the competition. Like, that's part of what makes you an excellent barista. So that doesn't mean that we need to all of a sudden exclude a bunch of the fun beverages, because it's still like an important part of the industry. Speak a little bit about that. Like, is there a way that we can incorporate some of these fun beverages that you see on the stage into everyday, that level of quality or skill level or excellence? Is that necessary?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Because again, you brought up the whole business side of thing. Like, of course you want to have a curated menu that gives, opens up the door for like different taste and flavor preferences. And signature beverages do that. Like, whether you don't have to also make them super complicated.
Yeah.
Like, you do have to think from a cafe point of view, is like, how does this drink work on bar when you have 10 to 15 tickets, going in and out, when you have a line out the door? Like, how does that, like, and you've probably seen, we've done everything from smoked beverages to like little torch beverages. I've done that like at other cafes, to literally would light a, marshmallow on fire in front of the guest and like garnish the beverage. Those are fun. But you also then have to consider, like, how many of those can you crank out during a rush? Is that beneficial? Right. So there's a lot of ways to do it really, really well. I think they 100% have their place. I mean, again, like, one of a very popular beverage at Narrative right now is called Lime Wired, and that's basically like a shaken iced coffee with simple and lime. And it slaps, and people absolutely love it. It's easy to make, it's quick, and it's tasty. Like, people never complain about it not being, well, never, I shouldn't use never, but people rarely complain about it being a beverage they don't like. Okay. So I think it definitely has place. And I think it absolutely, if you're a manager or a cafe owner, you should pursue that place. You shouldn't discount it just because you're like, oh, we only serve 85 plus coffees on a bar. How dare I mix in a vanilla syrup in it? Yeah. I'm like, make your vanilla syrup so good that how dare you mix in like anything below a 85 into that vanilla syrup? Right. Like, make it that good. Like, make sure that it tastes absolutely epic as that 85 plus coffee, and then it's fine. And it also, like, it's not as easy as people think, like, oh, just a couple of pumps of this, no. You're finding like flavor balance. You're actually like dialing in a beverage. You're not just saying, oh, I made a syrup and 2 pumps is enough. No, does it taste good with 2 pumps, 1 pump? What about a size of beverage? Do you need to add more or less pumps? Like, what kind of balance are you creating? Are you adding another ingredient to reveal more of this flavor? Right. There's so many ways to explore that. So it's fun. And it should be super exciting.
Which I think that draws, I think, like an interesting distinction worth noting between something that's like exceptional and something that's like, okay, we have 20 different flavors on the menu. Yeah. Let's serve everything. Yeah. And the 20 different flavors menu concept, I think, is oftentimes just like, okay, people want a white chocolate, people want, a chocolate, a vanilla, a caramel, of all this stuff. And the standard is, whatever it is, it's like 2 pumps for a 12 ounce or, and then you just mass copy that recipe. Yeah. And it's like, you're going to get a caramel latte. Right. Because there's caramel flavor in there and you got a beverage and it works. Yeah. Where, there is definitely like, what about not just mass copy and pasting it across, just getting the caramel flavor into the coffee and then serving it? What about like carefully curating, I think, like a beverage that is intentionally made, right? That is thoughtfully made, and by intentionally made, I mean like there's a reason why you did something. Yeah. Other than, hey, this just goes in there and it's too sweet. There's too much syrup in there, not enough. Right. Like, what can we do more? Like, if there was a blank canvas and you could do anything you could dream of, what is that? Yeah. And that's, I think, where a lot of some of the creative and artsy side of this thing comes through, where I think that's what defines a lot of like the craftsmanship behind.
And it's a signature beverage.
Yes,
It leaves a mark. It has a defining element to it that makes it like your signature.
For sure. Right? I think one last note, with something like we talked about, which I've yet to actually see in a cafe, is like pairing specific coffees with specific beverages. Like, this beverage can only be made with an Ethiopian natural, or this is only made with this specific, Colombian washed, because we've literally dialed in a beverage to go with the flavor notes that this coffee
Yeah.
expresses.
In a specific dial of a coffee, like
Yeah,
if you're 1 to 2,
Yes,
1
yes,
to 3,
yes.
like this coffee is dialed for this specific beverage.
Yeah.
100%. I think that exists. I don't know if it's super common, but
I just haven't seen it. Yeah.
I've seen that, like, not to the full 100% extent. We used to do that in narrative for a beverage back in the day. So it's like, yes, for sure that exists. But the other, here's another thought. This is not like completely out of left wing, but thoughts. What do you think about like a staccato? Do you even know what that is?
I don't.
Sick, dude.
What is this?
Dude, education time right now. Basically espresso. It's a iced Americano sparkling water. Sometimes it's called
Americano
with sparkling water.
in the Americano.
Yeah, so Americano is made out of the sparkling water. Just like a Topo Chico over ice and a shot of espresso on top. So it's a bubbly Americano.
Interesting.
Yeah. Or
okay.
it's sometimes referred to as a staccato.
I mean,
Would you
I think
consume?
the closest thing that I would think that too is like, because I just had to actually. Were you at the pop up?
I forgot to text Jared. I never made it to the pop up.
Dang.
I was just I was getting off work and then had rain and
I just drove by, stopped in. They had like a tonic, like some kind of espresso tonic.
That was my other
something
question.
interesting.
Yeah, I was wondering if
with like some bitters and stuff like that, which I just got because I was like, it's a fun pop up. Like I got a shot of espresso separately, and then I wanted something just a little more fun. And I would assume that's probably as close to a staccato of what I've had. Just if you minus probably some of the syrups that they threw in there. Yeah. Because it is like bubbly.
Yeah. But do you like gin tonics? Do you like espresso tonics?
I think occasionally I don't mind it. Like as like I think I can enjoy it as a beverage that has a coffee component. If I'm drinking coffee, I'm not going to go in for an espresso tonic. I'm going to go in for a coffee beverage. But something that includes coffee that's fun, I for sure would. Do you guys have a staccato at Narrative or?
Not on the menu, but people definitely order it. Like we have, we have bubble water. There's a ton of Topo Chicos.
Speaking of Americanos, I need to try a staccato at some point, but I think what?
You should.
I want to just for interest. Just because it's interesting. I will say though, like an Americano, but like a very short, small Americano,
like a diluted espresso, like minor. Like you went from like a 1 to 2 to a 1 to 4. So like Italiano,
maybe like a 5 ouncer. 5 ounce Americano. I think it's underrated. Like, say whatever you want. Sometimes that's just go. It's just sometimes that's just what the situation calls for.
I have a regular that I'm thinking about it. Go to order every single time as an Italiano. It's fine. I don't like Americanos in general. I don't remember last time I had an Americano. I don't like Americanos in general. I don't remember the last time I've had an Americano. I'll be honest. Because why? Like, think about it. Why? People roast me in the comment section, roast me on Spotify, just attack me. I'm inviting all of the attacks right now.
All the trolls.
Like, please tell me, like, why should I like Americanos? For why? For who? Not for me. Like, why? Like, if there's no batch brew, if you go into a cafe and the batch brew, it's like, oh, there's no more batch brew. Why are you in a cafe?
Okay.
Like, the cafe's closing then, right? Like, okay, get a shot of espresso. But why add water to the shot of espresso? If it's a dial shot of espresso, it has a specific recipe. It's supposed to taste. Why are we adding water?
Because I think there's something unique to an espresso shot, like the flavor profile, the mouthfeel, the texture. Like it's not a batch brew. Like there is a difference.
It's not a batch brew.
It tastes.
It's objectively worse than a batch brew.
No. Listen, an espresso shot has unique characteristics.
I'm talking about an Americano.
Right. Yeah. But I'm saying it has unique characteristics. Totally. So if you're like, man, I want that just maybe a little like, I don't know. Like that's what makes it different. Because there is a different
12-ounce Americano.
No,
12-ounce
not a
single shot Americano.
Stop.
Has no espresso textures in it.
No. Not a 12-ounce.
I'm probably wrong.
5-ounce. Like again, I'm saying like a little bit of dilution, just a little bit, just Again, I don't order this every day. I've never ordered it at probably Narrative, never.
Yeah.
And I'm in there. I mean, yeah. So I think occasionally it's what the situation calls for, but say what you will.
I'm also not like I'm
Do
being
what you will
serious.
with that
I'm being
information.
serious, but I'm also like slightly joking because worst comes to worst, if I don't have any options and I just want some coffee, if I'm pulling up to Dane Good Coffee and their mocha is out, like sucks. Everything's out and they're like, dude, you only have one drink on the menu. It's an Americano. Take it or leave it. I'll probably take it.
I will say this might be a hot take, but we're gonna wrap it up here soon. I do not understand this whole thing. Like, you walk in, you're like, hey, can I get a batchy? And they're like, sorry, we don't have any batchy, but we'll give you an Americano. I'm like, are you kidding?
We don't have bat. That happens.
I know. I don't understand why.
Well,
how's that acceptable?
Because why am I... Okay, one...
Like, I walked in for a
pour-over.
batchy,
Yeah,
which is the most basic beverage. It's made like a machine just pours water over it. It's like it's a staple. And then you're gonna like, if I order a batchy and you're gonna offer to replace it with an Americano, why?
Well, most likely, if you're ordering a batchy and there's no more batch available and you have to resort to Americano, that situation, you have to paint the context there. You're most likely coming in like less than an hour before close.
Again, I'm not talking about that.
So why wouldn't there be any batch brew in the morning?
No, like if you come in like in the afternoon, not 30 minutes before closing.
Yeah.
I'm saying like just. And this has happened to me. That's why I'm so confused.
I don't want to waste batch brew. I don't want to waste coffee.
Yeah.
Like I kind of know that after a certain hour in the cafe, if is the last time I'm brewing a full batch and I'm going to ride it out till close, right?
Yeah.
And of course, you got to make sure it still tastes good, all of that, this and that. Like, you don't want to serve bad batch just because it's at the end of the day. So sometimes I actually would rather toss it. Like, if I brewed a batch and it expired and I'm going to have to toss it because it doesn't taste good, like, I'm not going to rebrew a fresh batch an hour or 30 minutes before close.
Of course, I get that.
It's just wasteful because it's not going to sell.
But wouldn't you then offer like a filter?
Oh, of course.
Over? That's what I'm like.
That but should you offer it at the same price as a batch brew? No. No.
Sure.
That's steep.
I'd maybe argue that, but I think it's okay. I think it's okay.
Think about this. You're just going to come in 30 minutes before close every single time just to get that. Like,
okay, that's a nasty. That's
Nestor Lasso filter for $4.50 or $3.50 or whatever your batch brew prices are. And it's a $12 pour over or something like that. Like, no, it's not happening.
Yeah. I'm like, offer a filter in replacement, but why would you offer an Americano? Like, to me, I'm like, no.
Some people just don't want to wait that extra few minutes for a filter, and they're like, dude, give me my bean juice, dude. I need caffeination.
I can't
to live in this nation, dude. Come on.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you so much for listening to yet another episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm-Up Sessions podcast. I don't know who's gonna say what the people are gonna think, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this tangent on specialty beverages. And as we always say, remember, reflect what's good.